Joining us on the line right now is Representative John Delaney. He is the incumbent congressman for the 6th District in the state of Maryland. That includes, the Germantown area and all of western Maryland. Congressman, thank you so much for joining us here this morning.
Great to be here. Good morning, everyone.
All right, so I live in Germantown, and I went out to my mailbox, and I got this big card in my mail. Thank you for sending it to me. I really appreciate it. And it says that you care about equal pay for women, and you say that your opponent, Dan Bongino, does not. You know, I ask you this. Do you apply that equal pay provision in your own office there on Capitol Hill? And I ask this because even the White House, who espouses that viewpoint, has had a difficult time in trying to make sure that the women on staff at the White House have been paid exactly as the men are.
Yeah, I saw that about the White House, and obviously that was incredibly concerning. I do apply this in my own office, and I think the point we were talking about was the equal pay, the specific legislation that effectively makes it easier to make sure that this is actually happening in the workforce.
Well, it actually makes it easier for lawyers to sue. A lot of people criticize that legislation as just a gift to trial lawyers.
Yeah, I think that's, I don't think that's true, my own opinion, but I've definitely heard people say that. I mean, look, we definitely have an issue in this country. Women are getting paid about 70% of what men are getting paid for the same work, and a lot of data has supported.
Well, how does it shake out in your office?
In what do you mean? How's it play?
I mean, do you pay women the exactly the same as you do the men? If we were to run an analysis of your staff salaries, would you come out okay?
I think we would come out very well. I mean, look, I spent my whole career in the private sector prior to running for office. I started 2 companies in Maryland, a couple thousand jobs, and every year we were awarded one of the best places to work by Washingtonian Magazine. And the reason for that is I was very sensitive to making sure that it was a really good place for people to work. We provided really good benefits. We were very fair, obviously, in our hiring practices and our promotional practices. We provided a lot of, resources at the company. People were getting free flu shots when the flu season came. And so I'm really, really sensitive to how
would you be willing to release
really good workforce for people is not only good for the bottom line, it's really good for them, and it's really good for overall performance.
Would you be willing to release the staff salaries so we could check that fact?
Release the staff salaries in my offices?
Release details on the staff salaries at your office.
It's all publicly filed. All the staff salaries it's already public information.
Congressman, one quick follow-up on this topic. You just used the 70% figure. You know, the president used that, and he was given a Pinocchio by the Washington Post. He then changed it to 77 cents. With black and Hispanic workers, it's actually more like 94 cents. Are you going to stand by that 70 cents per dollar figure that you just quoted?
Say that again?
Are you going to stand by that idea that women get paid 70% of what a man gets?
Because there's a fair amount of data to support the view that women are paid, significantly less than men in the workforce. And then there's some other data. Look at last year. About a little over 50% of the college graduates were women in this country, right, which is great. And if you looked at large corporations, about half of their hiring out of college were women, which is very consistent with the who's graduating from college. But if you dig a little deeper, and if you look at when a promotion is made in a company to the level of manager, about 25% of those promotions went to women. And if you go even deeper than that, something called the C-suite, which is kind of the CFO, chief administrative officer, that level. Okay. If you look at promotions there, about 15% of that went to women. So there's clearly kind of a talent drain that's going on, as people advance in large corporations. Well, there's a lot of reasons for that. We all know there's kind of other factors that factor into
Yeah,
in
fact, I was going to say that.
We won't have the kind of competitive country that we want unless there's more kind of gender parity. And listen, I have 4 daughters, so I really care about this issue.
A lot of people are saying that the reason that women aren't getting paid very well is because the economy is so bad and continues to be moribund. The president, who's very popular in Maryland, so I'm sure that you're very excited to hear about this, he said this the other day.
Now, I'm not on the ballot this fall. Michelle's pretty happy about that. But make no mistake, these policies are on the ballot.
So are you standing by all of the president's policies as you run for re-election? And if not, which of the president's policies are you not standing by?
So what I've been focused on in my election is doing things to really improve improve some of the stuff you're getting at, which is what's going on in the economy. And again, as someone who spent my whole career in the private sector, creating jobs, building businesses, I think I'm one of the few people in Congress who actually understand how the private economy.
Well, that's
works.
great, but the question is, which of the president's
and they
policies
don't really have the perspective of actually having started a business, created jobs, how to make payroll.
Well, you can say the same thing about the president.
Business.
Actually, he didn't know that stuff either, and he's president. So
Yeah,
I ask you
think
again,
it's
which of
actually,
his
I think
policies?
It's really important for people to have more of that expertise. I really, really do, because so many people in government, and so many people in Congress, so many people running for office, their economic views are based
Congressman
on
Delaney, it sounds like you're avoiding aligning your policies with the president because you're not answering.
Kind of teeing up the answer to my question.
Okay,
great. Where I think the president, where I actually think the president should have had much more focus, is on the area of infrastructure and tax reform, right? Because I think there's a huge opportunity for us to increase our investment in infrastructure and do it in a fiscally responsible way without additional spending. And the way to do that is to drive some corporate tax reform. For example, I have a bill in the Congress which has about 50 Democrats and 50 Republicans. It's the most bipartisan piece of economic legislation in the whole of the Congress. And it increases our investment in infrastructure, but importantly, it does it without additional spending, right? Which is important when you consider the fiscal trajectory of this country right now. The way it does that is by dealing with the international tax system. Our corporations have $2 trillion of cash sitting overseas. That's a massively kind of missed opportunity, if you will, for our country. What our bill is creates a way for some of that money to come back tax-free to the United States, provided the company.
Okay, well, that is one of the president's policies. I asked you which policy.
Yeah,
he's called for that.
He's
called for that to bring to put a tax penalty on corporations that put their money overseas. It's absolutely right out of the president's stump speech.
Did you say tax penalty?
Yeah, you say he wants to penalize companies who put their.
That's why. Listen carefully. What I'm saying. What I'm saying is bring the money back tax-free, no penalty.
Let me ask you another.
Some of that gets invested in infrastructure, which is why it has such broad bipartisan support in the Congress. It's exactly the kind of policies that we need to be doing. And quite frankly, I think the president should be more behind some of those policies.
We are joined on the line right now by Congressman John Delaney, the incumbent running for re-election in Maryland's 6th District. He's running against Dan Bongino. And one of the things that is about to happen after the election, this is sort of interesting. The president has made it very clear that he wants to take some kind of action on amnesty for illegal aliens in this country. And there is a lot of evidence that suggests something's in the works. Even the vice president has said the president intends to do something big after the election. Would you support amnesty for illegal aliens in this country?
So what I've been supportive of from the beginning is the bill that's in the Senate, the bipartisan bill that's in the Senate, because I think that that's the best way to deal with our kind of multidimensional immigration challenges, if you will. The bill in the Senate, which was passed with bipartisan support, does all the things people are looking for in immigration.
So you don't support the president on this one?
Comprehensive deal, and I think it's really where the focus should be on the immigration.
And so you would not support the president's call for amnesty?
Yeah, I don't know what the president's call for amnesty means, to be honest with you.
Well, as a member of the House of, let me put it this way: as a member of the House of Representatives, you know what your constitutional role is. Do you condemn, or do you support the president's potential use of executive action and going around your back and taking your constitutional powers away from you on this?
I think the Constitution clearly empowers the Congress of the United States to make the laws, and the president has certain authorities to implement the laws. But I think in terms of significant changes to our immigration system, it should be done by the Congress of the United States.
Great. And also, Congressman Delaney, you replaced Roscoe Bartlett, a well-known congressman from the area. You've been there for 2 years. Can I ask you, this is a pretty good question to ask somebody who's running for re-election. What's your number one achievement in your 2 years in Congress?
Well, I've done a lot for veterans, right? In terms of really getting things done, I've really focused on our servicemen and women because, I think it's something I care deeply about. I think we owe them the greatest debt we could owe any citizens of this country, and it's really, really important for my district because I have a lot of veterans in my district. So I've passed some legislation around something called the Fisher House, which increases funding by a magnitude of fivefold for creating these living facilities that family members of veterans can stay in when their loved ones are being cared for in VA and related hospitals. What we found was that when our servicemen and women were getting this medical care, their families were confronted with three choices: either come out of pocket, pay a lot of money to travel and visit them, which I viewed as unacceptable, make the choice not to be with them because they couldn't afford it, or in some cases they were actually, if you can believe it, kind of camping out on the hospital grounds in tents. And so we saw this as a really big problem. We found a program called the Fisher House, which is based in my district.
Oh, yeah, we know them well.
We're well acquainted with Fisher House.
We know
exactly. Isn't it? I mean, let's face it, it's a great program. And we were able to fight and increase the funding level for that fivefold.
All right.
And it's an enormously successful. I've done a whole bunch of things around veterans. You know, I've also done a few things in the state where, for example, the governor of Maryland was not standing up for my constituents when there was some terrible floods in the western part of the state, and we thought he should have applied for aid through FEMA. He decided not to do that because, in his judgment, the communities were too small, which we thought was ridiculous. So we pushed them really hard. We told them they should reapply. We told them how to do it, and we pushed, and they didn't reapply, which, by the way, they still should have. But what they did was they provided other supplemental aid to these homeowners. And it just goes to show you a lot of programs in our government are not designed for smaller communities.
Right. Well,
Here's an example
Congressman,
where the FEMA levels, you know, the minimum levels that are stated, you know, are just too high for the kind of damage that some small communities could have that could devastate half the community.
We're going to have to leave it right there because we're all out of time. Congressman John Delaney, Democrat running for re-election in the 6th District of Maryland, thank you so much for joining us.
It's great to be with you this morning. Thank you.